Right. And we are live. Good morning, everyone, traders. How's it going? What are we at? Monday, September 22nd on the NASDAQ. We have a low probability Monday on our hands. And why is that? Well, if we look at the economic calendar, which I have up on another screen, we have a no news Monday. Overall, I think that the week's going to be a good week. We don't have any of the major red folders coming out. Instead, we have some quite nice red folders that we'll be playing out later in the week. But we have no news today, which means a few things. I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. I did some evaluating of the last month and a half's worth of no news Mondays, which were quite common. And I found some interesting data that I'll share here in a bit. But the moment we have 3 minutes until the market open. So what do we got going on here? We have, zoom out just a little bit. We don't need to be on the 1 minute quite yet. So noticing this kind of accumulation range, a little bit more so like this pre-market. I was liking that, and we're distributing up here to take some of this buy side liquidity. And noting these equal lows below here. So I am a little more bearish than anything on the session. I think, gosh, I'm torn on that. And I can share why here in a minute. But let's look over here on my other screen. I've changed some things around on how I'm doing my charts. I've divided them up into the 15-minute, 1 hour, 4 hour, and daily into different browser tabs. And then I'm looking at all three assets on the time frames and then looking at different aspects and indicators on the time frames. And I can share a little bit more about that as I go throughout the day here. But the one thing I wanted to look at is I want to check out the 1 hour. So over in the London session, the 1 hour came down into this fair value gap and found support. It inverted it and then inverted it again. So this is giving me a little bit of a bullish inclination, at least for a response up into this fair value gap. And then we shall see. Now, to contrast that, the 15-minute did hit this 130 ADR level during London, which typically signifies continuation, even if it comes up for a stop hunt and then continuation further down. But we are below the new week opening gap. We are below the midnight open. So those to me feel bullish, is to contradict that. So we're just going to wait for a little bit more information. We do have bullish SMTs forming down here at these lows. This candle closing above is going to give us a change in state of delivery right here. And we got open right now. So let's go over to the 1 minute. I do want to throw this 1 hour gap here on the chart. Curious to see how this gap lines up with some of the liquidity up in this area. So we have this buy side was taken. We have lots of buy side. All these swings up until the London high. Tapping into this fair value gap. Just reminding myself that this 920 to 940 macro is not my best friend. If it forms a nice big breaker, then sure. But if it forms a quick little breaker inversion, then no. This little fair value gap. All right. London high is taken. Turn this macro indicator off. I don't want it above 4 minutes. So I'm gonna set it so that way, little hack for TradingView, you can set the indicators to show on certain time frames. I'm overall bullish on the week, but I might expect a little bit of sell side delivery to start off the week before bullish delivery. So pushed through this 1 hour fair value gap pretty far. This is pretty common for no news Mondays, is one-sided delivery like this. I noticed a majority of the Mondays, they just opened and pushed up. There's no 9:30 retracement. There's no two-stage delivery at 9:30 like it happened right down here at 8:30. All right, so I'll take this 1 hour gap off. The London high has been taken. Let's go over here and take a look. I want to clean this up a little bit. I want to show just the current new week opening gap. Can I do 0? 0. Can't do 0. Got to change a few things around just because changing my layouts. So here we have NQ is almost up to the midnight open. ES is only halfway there, and YM is completely going the opposite direction. So we got here on the 1 minute, it's starting to create some inversions. So this here would be a first inversion right there. There's our first presented gap. I'm curious, just regular trading hours is above us right up in this zone. Just noting that. It's my SMT indicator. Turn that on. Oh, and we want higher time frame levels. So we have 21 minutes left on this 1 hour, this 4-hour candle. 1 minute left here in this 920 to 940 macro. I'm going to go ahead and turn that indicator off. Clean up the screen just a little bit. So we can see YM is creating lower lows, whereas NQ and ES are creating higher highs. It's starting to look a little juicy. So the 5-minute breaker wouldn't even be until all the way down in there. And we got to close below that inversion within that macro. A little bit outside of the macro window, but here we have this would be the 1-minute breaker. No close below. One of the things I found in my statistics for No News Mondays is 40% of the days there was no trade to be had, just no setup whatsoever. All right, so here's a little internal stop hunt. Inverted this. This is actually a continuation model. Into that 5-minute fair value gap. If I were bullish, I am not for this session. I'm not gonna lie. I don't feel, if I'm bullish, I want to see it come down and then go up. Something about this is bugging me out to be taking a continuation long at this point. Let's just scope it out. Why is that? Let's zoom out a little bit, check out the 5-minute chart. So we do have, you know, London here taking Asia's low, and it's bullish price delivery. So I need to look at that, and I think until this is just a great place for price to reject for a little bit of sell side delivery for the week. I think it was the 4-hour was making me feel a little bearish. So let's go over to that chart. What are we at? Here's the daily chart. The daily has a fair value gap. I was anticipating price this week coming down into this fair value gap before continuing on higher. On the 4-hour, I was seeing this inefficiency, and it could be so bullish that it just wants nothing to do with this inefficiency down in here. This candle was originally closing, looking like it was going to have a fair value gap in here. So the 2 a.m. took this liquidity, creating some bullish price action. I'm curious to see where this candle closes. Now the 1-hour did come down into a discount, a 50% level, create some SMT. I think the lack of imbalance in this chart here is kind of why I'm seeing all this liquidity down in here, but maybe it's not going to come and get it because YM did. You know, here's these lows right in here, all this liquidity, YM cleared out. And in terms of, you know, the daily candle, here's the midnight open. Doesn't want to load. You know, seeing this is the daily wick below the midnight open. So this could all be the manipulation. Five-minute order flow is bullish. Look at that beauty here at 8. Where is that? Is that 833? It closes above that inversion, makes this breaker, and sends this price just sky high. So, no trade for me. What happens in here is going to be helpful in determining the bias in the narrative. This next 1 hour candle closes here in 10 minutes. So that's going to be, I think, an indicator for me. See, closing, we'll have this inversion if it closes here above that inversion. And sometimes different time frames tell a different story. Like, they just give you a different vibe. Like the 1 hour, the whole time gave me the bullish vibe. 15-minute, I was wanting to see this liquidity swept before running bullishly. Now, alternatively, it could be taking these highs to go lower. So, I don't know. Well, time will tell. But we start closing up in this zone, and it's going to be bullish, is my opinion. All right, it is 9:50. So here we have Asia high and the previous day high, previous week high. I think all the previous highs are right there. And this is yet another Monday with one-sided delivery. I was going to show what I found. Let's pull that up. So here's what I found looking back at all the no news Mondays and Fridays, and I looked at the AM and the PM sessions. And so this is AM and PM. This is AM only because I tend to trade the AM more. But I was curious to see the win rate and also the number of days that just simply had no trades. And kind of depending on if we included the PM session or not, it changes obviously. But I'm going to look at the morning where we had 2 days that were no trades, 30% of them. 2 days that were expenses and 2 days that were wins. So a total of, and one Friday right there in the AM session. So it shows that, well, for one, the win rate for me is lower than normal. A 42% win rate is far from my normal 60-ish% win rate, maybe slightly higher. So that tells me, for one thing, I need to back off of on the risk when we come to no news days. But at the same time, it also suggests, like if I looked at the AM and PM sessions combined, or even just the AM sessions, it suggests that, and this is not a lot of data, this is a little bit more, 13 trades versus 7. but it still suggests that with, a 2R, it's still profitable. So therefore, it's still worth my time to sit here and look at these no news days. For one, the learning experience. For two, according to statistics, it does say I am still profitable. But it is something I could consider pulling out, obviously reduces my win rate overall if I trade the no news days. So that was just a little, and this is why looking back at data and studying the charts in reverse is so important. You can really find what you should or shouldn't be doing, But like, here's an example of, where's an AM chart? I think this is, this is a 9 AM chart. A typical no news Monday. Yeah, this was a Monday. And we can just see the one stage delivery, giving no entry options for me at least throughout this price leg. And what we can see here is something quite similar. There was no major liquidity taken. All right, Asia high is taken. And this is where I'm not interested in shorting all-time highs. Like, just don't do it. Not smart. At least for me. I was saying that basically as things start closing up in this zone of the new week opening gap, this midnight open. Like here, let's pull up the 15. This candle, if this candle closes up anywhere in here, it's just bullish to me. Then this stop hunt is not didn't happen. YM did the stop hunt coming down in here. And here we have a change in state of delivery. And then on this, I chose this breaker leg right here, personally. I know some might have picked this as the breaker. I mean, you can really use any of these. I can see it both ways here. But which one do I want to take? We'll take this one. So then this standard deviation fib is telling us 4 and 4.5 is right up in here. We're not far from it. Already blasted through 2.5 of that breaker. Now that happened at 8:30 in the morning, which was right down in here, and I was not around on the charts for that. All right, Asia high is taken. We have this little gap down in here. Tailless candle right here. We'll see. Oops, wrong screen. Now look at YM is just pushing hard to catch up. One minute left on this 1 hour candle and the 4 hour candle. So this here was the liquidity grab. I had this red line marked out. I was noting that this 2 a.m. candle looked like it was potentially stop hunting this candle, but the rest of it didn't kind of line up for me. So I was kind of anticipating it still to be more bearish. So far, it's falling into the category of 40% of the the no news Mondays where I do not have a trade. Where London makes the lower the high of the day, and today looks like, I'm guessing, London will, at least for the session. All right, 10 a.m. So this 1 hour candle closed super bullish. Turning this into an inversion. We now have this here is a bullish breaker. And this would also just be your 1 hour change in state of delivery. So if we were to look at this 1 hour manipulation and get some targets off of it, here we go. Way up in the sky, up there. I feel like why I wanted a bigger breaker on this right here is I feel like it's just, these are too close to targets. But I bet, I'm curious to see if I did that and then moved one of these over to, say, here. How do they look comparatively? So one standard deviation is in the 4.5 zone for this one. I was going to do compare it to this up here. So 1 is equal to 2 standard deviations. I like that. I think that's a good compromise. So here, this one, what's interesting is like when we look at this, like if you're offsides, a market maker sell model came down to 1 standard deviation and then reversed. So we can kind of anticipate, are we in an expansion or a retracement leg? And the retracement leg came down into the 1 standard deviation, whereas this is an expansion leg. So I'd expect 2 to 4 standard deviations. I'm curious if YM gave a trade. Not really. Well, there's this gap. 951 close. Yeah, I mean right there. Longing that inversion. But I don't enter on YM, so. Ooh-wee. So at this point, what am I looking for? I could possibly take a, so if this high remains intact, I don't think it will. I could possibly look for a long if price comes back down into here. I don't think it will though. Kind of looking around, seeing what I think. And there we go. Previous highs taken on NQ. So I'm not seeing myself as having any trade setup anywhere in here. So I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. And we'll see. I'm expecting some kind of response right there. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take a quick coffee break. All right, that was way longer than 5 minutes, but I also got breakfast in on the deal. My little 8-year-old, he made some scrambled eggs for me. So I think that's well worth taking a little bit longer of a break. So where are we at now? All right, so here I anticipated price to tap into this level and come back down, which it did, came back down, took those equal lows into this fair value gap. I was kind of thinking it might come down into this tailless candle, but not yet. So really at this point, for me, let's see what we got. So over here, I can kind of measure this two ways because I have this breaker here, which I'm going to put this on a different chart. Right here. Is this breaker here is a little bit more of a weekly kind of target. Make sure you're looking at the same thing as me. So here is the weekly. So this is Monday. We're going to 30-minute chart, but I look at this like as days of the week, and I mark out the Sunday 12 a.m., Sunday night 12 a.m., new week opening gap, previous week high. So we shall see. We just took out the previous week high, and the idea here being all right, so let's see here. I'm just curious. I got to get these settings. Look at the symbols. The body is 3 over and 3 and 3, 4 and 3. Okay. 3 over 3, 3, 4, 3, 3. So anticipating this, like, is this the weekly wick? And if so, here's the manipulation, and here's our standard deviation targets for the week. Gosh, it's interesting. I had thought about putting this up on the screen and being like, well, here's the model. What if I set a limit order like this? And that's 236 ticks for a 1 hour. I'm not logged in, 236 ticks, but logged in on this screen. Because here is my model in a 1 hour. Here on the 15-minute, reaching the 2.5 standard deviations, it's about where I would anticipate some kind of retracement and assuming bullish continuation. So short of practicing reading order flow, the 1 minute's pretty useless right now. So here was a stop hunt inversion. I'd be curious if Hydra took it. And I feel like that's kind of where I struggle and where I need to develop is I don't really have like a continuation model. You know, here was a stop hunt inversion into like a 5-minute gap. So here was a long, but in part I had no targets. I was like, well, London high is all it could have wanted. I had no idea if it wanted Asia high or even the all-time high. I'm curious. I'll scan Twitter real quick, see what any of my mentors have done, if anything. Not seeing anything. Candles are off the screen. Cool. Nobody's doing much of anything today. I noticed Doji did take this Dodgy. I don't even know how to say his name. Dodgy. It's terrible. But he took this setup right in here, which for me it had, I don't know, it just did taken London, which instantly made me a little more bearish and was potentially looking at like, could this be a short down into here before continuation? But don't get me wrong, I'm overall bullish. I was just expecting a little more bearishness today, or at least the session. But I was off sides, and that's okay. That's part of it. You know, like, I see this a lot, and I know Hydra takes this. So here's a for value gap. It's a 5-minute gap tapped into bullish delivery, and here's the stop hunt inversion. And ideally, if there's an SMT here, amazing. And then depending on if you're using the macro or not. So this is outside the macro. Didn't technically give an, I guess it did give a, right there. That's what I would have done with this breaker inversion. But that's okay. You don't get them all. That's part of it. Just going to make some notes here on my day so I can review them a little later. So that didn't happen. Just make notes like this so I can come back and review, like, was I thinking straight or was I not thinking straight? You know, it's hard to review like a big long live stream like this. I can clean up some of this stuff. And then I can maybe improve my system later on, you know. All right, I got some notes there. So now what? Well, let's throw on the gold block levels. So here we're at equilibrium of the 243. Could expect some consolidation in this zone. And we can move around, look at some of the other charts. So here on the 15-minute, this is 2.5 standard deviations. Really would anticipate a high probability of some means of retracement. YM still hasn't taken that high. All right, 10:48. The new next macro's incoming here in 2 minutes. We're just in price discovery mode at all-time highs. So bullish. Look at all these gaps. And that candle closed. So I'm not shorting this. And I don't have a long until price comes down below this candle kind of thing. So it could be another hour before I even have a setup. Yep. So I am going to shut the stream down. You know, not taking a position is a position. You know, staying in cash, capital preservation, that's an option. That is a position. It's not just getting into a trade that's a position. I thought about shorting, didn't quite see what I wanted, didn't get any confirmations, didn't take a short. And if you look at my P&L over on the left hand above my face, right, that could be red. And instead it's green. My account, my funded account is still in the green, and I'm happy about that. So capital preservation is a position. And I didn't force anything in here, and I feel pretty good about that. I do want to figure out some kind of continuation model like this guy right here. I think even, I used to take these with Hydra, I think. And even in those situations, I think this one, because London high was taken, I still wouldn't have taken it because I wouldn't have been confident that it wanted any more liquidity than this. This is 50% of the Asia range. This is a perfect reversal zone if bearish. So even if I would have shorted here, I would have been okay with it and taking a loss because I would have felt it would have been a reasonable guess. Obviously, it would have been off sides, but that's part of this game, right? So at this point, I'm gonna shut it down. I might look a little later, you know, the 1150 macro, see if something pops up. But ultimately, I don't think I'm gonna get anything. So no point in just sitting here. And I'll catch y'all tomorrow. I'll be streaming all week long. Same thing, a little bit before